your favorite row. You've got the soil and composting, which comes in a variety of different ways. You can do your standard compost bin, certainly try some of the newer options like the rotating bins that some people have, the vermicomposting with worms, there's trench composting and what they call grass cycling. Lots of different options out there. Some of them don't take up much space, some of them do. Some of them is pretty simple. For example, with this one, they've got it set up so you've got your basic trench, you've got walking space, and then you've got your garden. And you just move where your compost trench is from year to year so that you continue to have that soil additive going on and enriching as needed. And that you can do basically any time of year. I know the Rolling Meadows Community Garden also has their own compost bin. If you've gotten started on your kits, we also have additional resources on starting seeds. If you're looking further out, you can certainly start seeds inside and then transplant them outside. Whether you're looking at just your basic fall crops, whether you want to go ahead and try a winter garden, which is now. See, there's a wide variety of choices out there. This is for sugar snaps and strawberries, which is intended to be a guide for those who might not actually have a full yard in which to grow things. Other winter harvesting options, we've got Winter Harvest Handbook, and also the Four Season Gardener's Cookbook. The authors are based up in Maine, so there is quite a bit of no practical advice. And they too have an entire section on things you can grow over the winter, multiple different options, including cold frames, small hoop houses, which they have as a quick hoop rather than your full hoop. And they also talk about greenhouses and size that would be necessary if you really wanted to have enough to feed your entire family. They do talk about the different options of what you can use at different times of the year. Full frame has been in use since at least the 1600s. You also have pruning this time of year, whether you're looking at your trees, shrubs, or climbers. You have the fun of fallscaping as an option. There are lots of different plants that you can put in or already have that may give you a bit of a show this time of year. You can also plan ahead because you may find that the deer are beginning to venture into your garden as well as through the wooded areas. They definitely do. They're well-traveled creatures. If you're looking for something with a bit more adventure, this book is written by an author who European national gardens. He collected bulbs from all over Europe and Asia and wrote about not only the difficulties of getting to and finding them, but also some of the many kinds that he brought back and cultivated. There are several sections of pictures. Some of the many options and things that he got out there and observed. You don't want to wait for spring. There is the option to force bulbs as well. When you are forcing bulbs, you are keeping them in the cold, your refrigerator if you don't have any food in there, or in your garage or basement. And you can put them in there for anywhere from 10 to 20 weeks, depending on the bulb itself. And fool them into thinking that it's springtime long before it actually arrives. So, for example, hyacinth bulbs, you can either force in potting soil or potting mix, or you can put them into glass vases. Hyacinth vases generally have a section at the top, and then they narrow, so sort of hourglass shape. The idea being that you can put the water in the valves to right below where the roots will grow from the bulb, and then let the roots grow down into that, so that you can see the development as it goes on. You would still start it in the dark and cold. In the case of the hyacinth bulbs, you might want to not start it in the actual bulb vase until you bring it inside. And when you do bring those forced bulbs in, you have to give them a time to adjust to low light before you expose them to full light, similar to how they would gradually come out into the light naturally. Daffodils are another standard option. And if you want something that doesn't require that period of cold, amaryllis and paper whites both have that choice. Bulbs do well in containers if you're not forcing them, or if you are. You can plant them either further apart, or if you're doing a bulb garden indoors, you can plant them quite closely. You can sometimes have quite a number of bulbs in together. 6 to 7 in a 6-inch pot, for example, if you're looking at tulips. And of course, fall is the time to plant your spring flowering bulbs. So if you want to add something to the garden, you do have that choice, and there are so many options out there. Of course, what you've got at home, you have salad leaves in your kits. If you'd like to pick up an extra kit, we still have some if you have people who you know who would enjoy it. There are a variety of lettuces in the kit. You can also use your kitchen scraps and regrow all sorts of fun things. You can regrow leeks using the bottom half portion, usually about 1 inch worth, above the roots. We'll just plant that or put it into water, grow it till you're ready to do more. You can do beets, you can do horseradish, rhodey lettuce, grow beets from the bottom section or from the top if you would prefer the greens. You can regrow your celery. Sweet potatoes. And you can regrow some of those things which are a little bit harder to find, like ginger and gallandol. They do tend to grow more horizontally than vertically. So you need a relatively shallow pot. And it will take a good bit of time, but you can use those stems and they will also have a milder flavor than the roots. You'll just want to let it get nice and established. Pretty much anything where you are using the bulb, including turmeric, you can go ahead and regrow that. We have several different books that go into this. You've got the illustrated one, Don't Throw It, Grow It, where it'll go over how to do it, just like this other one that we have here. And of course, we have Plants from Pits, which take a little bit longer to give you what you're looking for. Most of those are actually trees. Obviously, if it's a tropical fruit, it's going to have to stay inside. And you may or may not find it as happy as otherwise. But you do have the choice to take the pit, wash it off, and plant it. You can also use the seeds from your peppers. Those will still get you what you're looking for. Pumpkins and squash, if you have a lot of space, and if your association permits, because they sprawl, it's not quite the right season to plant those outside, but you can certainly do an indoor plant. Some of the other options, again, less traditional, but might work indoors. Be prepared to put in a lot of time waiting. We do have a lot of resources on indoor plants, most of which tend to be a little bit more tolerant of shade or low light conditions, which also many times come from more tropical climates, just because our houses tend to be warmer than the outdoors in the winter time by quite a bit. So there's everything from the standard plant-focused option to the ones that focus more on design and how you can utilize plants to change the feel of your indoor space. In some cases, they've got quite a lot of plants taking up whatever space they can. So lots of choices depending on what you want to do. You could even grow a living wall, indoors or out. And there's a number of different ways that you can do that if you so choose. Either by using climbing plants or a variety of succulents, fabric pockets. This one goes into all sorts of different kinds and methods and options. Of course, you might just be looking for guides on how to keep those houseplants happy inside. Now, depending on the plant, each of them has a slightly different set of needs. Um, in some cases, you can tell someone also had fun with the names. This particular one goes back and forth between plant profiles and people profiles. So it'll talk about people who have made plants very much part of their lives and their philosophy. Sometimes you want to go for a smaller scale and just bring something inside. This one goes into some of those methodologies. Other times, you just want to change how everything looks, which is what decorating with plants goes into. A lot more books I'm actually showing you on. Sometimes you need a little something for troubleshooting. So there's how not to kill your house plant and what's wrong with my house plant, which covers everything from optimum conditions for different plants and common problems. Others get into specifically what's gone wrong. And these exist also for the garden, like the Anxious Gardener's Book of Answers. But sometimes you're going to find you're trying to combat an infestation of pests. Other times you're going to find you pruned something and it didn't turn out quite the way you want. So it's got troubleshooting on things like that. If you're looking for plants you can put into your outdoor garden, we have some guides for that as well. Top plants for northern gardens, which are options that are exceedingly hardy. There's the Native Plant Primer. Now, some of these you may already be familiar with. When you don't want them there, they're weeds. And when you do want them, they're garden plants, such as the common milkweed or the cinnamon fern. And some of the plants that you might think of as being just garden plants, like the common phlox, are actually native to the Americas. They just got taken abroad, turned into garden plants, and then brought back. Lots of choices. 100 easy to grow native plants. And the advantage of gardening with things like this is they don't really require much care. They're just going to stick there and be hardy and generally be pretty happy with occasional watering and possibly a little bit of compost. We do have some month-by-month gardening guides specific for the area. If you are just trying to figure out, well, what do we do in September? Or later on, as the case may be. And it'll go through lawn care, bulb care, what you should be doing for your trees, what you should be doing for your containers, a little bit of everything. Sometimes you really want to stick to small space gardening. And there are options out there that people have already written up and given information on. This one is called the Postage Stamp Vegetable Garden. And as you may note from the cover, they are planted very, very closely. This does make it a lot harder for those weeds to get in, at least once it's established. But it also makes it maybe a little trickier for you to get in there and harvest, depending on how you've got it laid out. So you would want to be real careful about where you put things. And there's a lot of these sort of books. There's Small Plot Big Harvest. There's Grow All You Can Eat in 3 Square Feet. Small Space Vegetable Gardens. Whether it's on a balcony, a raised bed, growing up the walls. If you're looking more at container gardens, we've got plenty of those as well. Whether you want something for texture or something for scent, there are many options. You can even combine things and have an ornamental but edible garden. This one has, looks like a spaliered fruit up against the back fence or wall. You've got some ornamental varieties of the Brassica family. We've had fun with the herb plantings in some of these. So you can basically grow whatever you like in as much or as little space as you actually have. If you want to make life a little bit easier, there are self-watering containers. Either these are available for purchase, but you can also make your own. There are books with instructions, like this one, where it shows you how to make the reservoir and layer things so that everything can be gotten to, put in usually a pipe or something to let it be a little more accessible, so you don't have to pull up the lower pot to get to the bottom pot to water it. And there's versions online with the do-it-yourself with everything from the 5-gallon bucket with a piece of PVC where you just pour it in the tube and get that down there, to much fancier and prettier containers. It just depends on what you want to do and how big a container you want to go for. That counteracts some of the watering issues that you may find with containers in general, where they dry out very quickly. And you can usually check things pretty easily by just sticking a finger in and seeing what it's like 1/2 inch to 1 inch down. If you can still feel a little bit of moisture, you're good. You can't tell from that top layer whether it's actually dry. But if it feels dry when you're down in the dirt, then you know it's time to water again. If you just want to do window boxes, there are also books just on that. Whether you want, and they'll go into different ideas, what to plant, if you want that specific look. Whether you're looking at tropical plants, this one where you can see the actual window box. Whether you want to do something really simple and have ornamental grasses. In this case, they went ahead and had some fun by adding a few tiny pink flamingos. Just to give it a bit of whimsy. You can also have a lot of fun with other options. This one, for example, uses woodland plants. And because these are all adapted for shade, you do have the option of using a perfectly shady spot where you just have a little bit of sunlight. This particular one used saxifrage, columbine, a hosta, fringed bleeding heart, coral bells of multiple different types, and yet another hosta. The only thing to be aware of course, is some of those plants won't stay small if you give them a chance to actually get the nutrients they need. Witness the hostas that you can see from the youth area downstairs of those windows. They've been there for well over a decade, and they are definitely happy down there. You can also get into terrariums if you want something that's a little more self-contained. You just have to add a little bit of water and smidge of venting here and there. Or if you really want to get into whimsical, you can create your own little miniature garden and do anything you like. Whether that's putting an entire tiny gnome garden in to a pot, which, or if you want to go a bit more for the Hobbit hole look, you could do something like this. And this particular book shows you how to do each of the different options that it has created. They obviously have a lot of fun. Some of them make use of small plastic toys. This one is called Under the Sea. And you can see they've got a shark propped up there on a bit of wire. Made good use of a couple of seashells, rocks, and a number of succulents. And you can really go with anything you want, including a miniature atrium that you can build out of a bird cage or an old aquarium. There's lots and lots of different choices out there. Speaking of choices, You can also grow mushrooms at home if you want. There are kits that you can buy where all you have to do is add some water. But this particular book goes into the full how-to and life cycle, what you need if you really want to be giving it the full experience. Obviously, it's a good option if, for example, you've got a little bit of extra firewood, or if you've got a tree that you had to cut down, you've got choices. It will go through and give you full instructions on multiple different ways to get the mushrooms that you want started, rather than the kinds that will pop up on their own. One very important thing to remember if you're dealing with mushrooms is make sure that whatever you are growing is actually edible. There are many varieties out there which are not, and some of them can actually kill you and may mimic some of the edible options, which is why the only people who gather the wild mushrooms successfully are the trained mycologists. And even then, sometimes there's issues. Now, we've gone through a lot of vegetables, but we also have a whole bunch of books on herb gardening. And again, these can be grown indoors or outdoors. You can go through and find options either for outdoor planting, which you can do a lot with the way in which you plant things. And you can grow quite a lot of different things indoors or out, whether you're looking at the bay laurel for bay leaves, whether you're looking at your basil, chives, which you've got in your kits. Just right in there, you can see they have lovely pink flowers when they're full grown. You can get a lot of variation. You can even grow your own saffron, which is a great deal less expensive than buying it in the store, although it still requires a lot of prep work. You have to dry it for a certain amount of time and cook it in your oven to sterilize it. But if you want to, you can get the bulbs from a variety of sources out there, and they will bloom in the coming fall. Unlike a lot of other crocuses that bloom in the spring, these bloom in the fall. Now, if you do wind up with a full herb garden, you can do different herb blends with the fresh herbs. You can dry them and blend them that way. You can put them into vinegar and let them steep so that you have flavored vinegars. You can do the same thing with oil. You can make teas. You can chop up the herbs and mix it in with whipped cream or butter. Some of them do include additional recipes as well. This time of year, if you are looking for something that you can plant outdoors, you can start garlic in your garden in October easily. And you just leave it there and let it overwinter and harvest it later on. And this one will go into everything on different types, on different parts of the plant that you can use at different times. Lots of different options. it will grow in a variety of different ways. And it will need support if you choose to do that. Depending upon the bulb that you use, some of them will grow easily and quickly. Others may require several years before you can actually harvest good sized bulbs. So you have the bulbs themselves, which I apologize. Look quite a bit different. You can, of course, use one segment of the garlic that you already have at home and plant that, especially if it's already started sprouting. And so you'll want to make sure that it grows. You can have it grow in a container. Similar, you would plant it in the fall, harvest it the following summer. It does need to be protected from hard freezing in cool climates like our own, whether that's storing it in a garage, whether that's putting the containers together and burying them, mulching them thoroughly so that they're protected at sides and top. When they're actually in the soil, they're relatively protected if you are planting them in the ground. And just because the garden is edible doesn't mean that you can't also wind up with something that gives you a lot of options to have something pretty. Obviously, out here, we can't really grow the sort of plants that they can, say, in California. But there's nothing to say that you can't decide to change up the playbook entirely and go with anything up to re-landscaping your front yard. Nothing says it has to be all lawn. Obviously, if you choose to go that route, you will be needing to weed quite a bit and make sure it looks nice. Lots of choices out there. And of course, there's also perennials, which you can plant, which will come back each year. Whether you're looking at, for example, rhubarb, whether you're looking at this chard, you could even try artichokes, although you may want to make sure those are very well labeled because otherwise you can and easily mistake them for a more common thistle. You can see here, for example, this one has arugula, lettuce, mustard, chives, artichoke, rosemary, oregano, and something called Euphorbia rigida. You can still have fun with the different leaf shapes, the different textures, the various sizes and flowering habits of different plants. This container has French and English thyme, tricolor sage, garlic chives, Greek oregano, and white and purple flowered alyssum. And depending upon what you grow, you can also use it to make household decorations like this herb wreath. You have a lot of choices, no matter what you want to do. If you have any questions, please let me know. There will be a newsletter sent out later with the books. Just make sure you're unmuted before you ask the question so I can actually hear you.
Hi, do you have any book for compost?
Yes, I think you came in just a little bit after I showed those off. Got a couple here. Composting for a New Generation, which looks at some of the newer options, and of course, soil and composting. Both of these go into a lot of different options on how to do it, different methods, whether you're looking for something relatively small or something larger.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? We still have some of the take-home kits if you're interested. Those are available at the welcome desk.
So where we can find these books in which section?
The books are all in the 635s, where all of the gardening books are going to be.
Okay, 635.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. The composting in particular, looks like they were divided up a little oddly. One of them is 635.0489, and the other one is 631.875. I guess if there are no other questions, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time out. And I hope you have a great time with your gardening. Let me show you just a few more things in terms of resources that are available to you. So we have here the University of Illinois Extension Service. They offer a lot of different options. As you can see here on the side, you've got their 4-H programs, consumer economics, economic development, disaster preparedness. This one particularly focuses on horticulture. And they have a lot of different resources on the different aspects of things that you might find interesting, including composting. So they've got popular resources, they've got some how-tos. So you have resources even from home that you can get to. They also have a fairly extensive set of YouTube videos conversations between multiple gardeners. All of them are intended to give you additional education, and there is an extension service offered by almost every state. Part of the requirements when they gave the universities the land grants was that they would help educate the larger population because the nation had given them the land. Whether you're looking, and they also have a number of events that you can register for, which are usually webinars at this point. Falling into the autumn vegetable garden, filling your pantry home, they have a whole webinar series, whether it's canning, freezing, fermenting, drying, making jams and jellies, pickling, processing those late season tomatoes, keeping your apples, how to preserve your seasonal produce, gets into dehydrating and curing. The vermiculture training is intended more for teachers, but you can at least see a little bit of information about how they look at that. More information on landscaping with native plants. There is an entire series called Gardening in the Air that takes place October 9th. That is a collaboration between the Illinois Extension Service and the Iowa Extension Service. Look at pollinators, including bees, which if someone wants to here in Rolling Meadows, there is the permit process to raise bees at home, just as there is for chickens. Vegetables and herbs, tree information. Another resource you might not be aware of is the Illinois Master Gardeners is a volunteer organization of certified educators. And they do have the ability to email the North Cook Master Gardeners directly. It may take a bit for them to get back to you because it is both a volunteer organization and, surprise, they've been dealing with a lot more questions than they normally get. But they do make an effort to try and get back to you. We also have here in Rolling Meadows a garden club. And they do meet regularly. So for example, on September 8th, they had a program on successful soil. They usually meet the second Wednesday of each month at the community center. We also have a community garden, which you may be familiar with. It's up near Kimball Hill Park. They have their own website or Facebook page. People have signed up for the dedicated space each and then planted as they wished. There's also the Chicago Botanic Garden. They do have a September garden checklist and one for all of the other ones with specific and helpful information on the different options of what you're caring for. The Morton Arboretum is another information resource, both on plant selection, how to solving problems, looking at what trees you should expect to see, what to know about the diseases. So there are many, many resources out there for you to enjoy. And a significant portion of them are offered either at no cost or subsidized by donations, and in the case of the Illinois Extension Service, your tax dollars. So you don't have to stop learning with just what's at the library, although we are more than happy to have you enjoy everything.
Hello.
Hello.
I would like to comment on this little gardening kit that we received. And I thought it was so lovely and everything was included in here. But the only problem is that these little seed pots, they do not all fit on this plastic plate that's supplied with it.
They might not fit in a row, but they should if you cut them apart.
Well, I did that.
Hmm.
And I am doing it right now. I did it right now and they don't all fit.
I am so sorry.
Yes, and I thought, oh, this is so sweet and so lovely. And somebody went to a lot of trouble to put this together, except they don't all fit on this plastic plate. So I thought that I'd just like to comment on this because I thought it was the whole kit concept was just wonderful. Excuse me, and I was looking so forward to putting it together and then and planting and then I found that I don't think this are going to fit on this plate. So I took them apart and they don't. So that is just my only the only not good thing that I could find with this whole kit concept. I think the concept was just wonderful. So I congratulate the library on this because it's wonderful. But the thing is they don't all fit. So
Thank you for letting us know. It's the first time we've tried this, and there obviously were a few more bumps in the road than we thought there were going to be.
Hi, thank you for, it was more informative about all the programs and everything you showed us. Let me follow up. It was really good to know about all this.
Thank you. Is there anything else that anyone would like to say? Thank you all. Hopefully we can do better next time.
One more question. If my kid is actually 9 years old, and so which book? So I want any section regarding plants. All these books we saw, I think this is all very big for her to read. So for kids section regarding the plants and everything, in which section can we see?
So it's the same numbers, it's just located downstairs.
Oh, okay.
If you got the kit, there are resource lists for both the adult books and the children's section.
Okay. Okay. So it will be 635 section, but in downstairs section. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. That is awesome.
I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.